You're watching a replay of Brain Drain with Rich Cabaceres. For more videos just like this, hit that red subscribe button.
And good morning. Happy Monday. You're listening to Brain Drain on the legendary 1480 WSAR. I am Rich Cabaceres, and there are multiple ways where you can watch this show throughout the entire country. And you can go to WSAR.com, Spindle City Autoglass Studio Cam. You can watch me on the J&J Jewelers Facebook Live Cam and comment below. You can listen to me anywhere in the world by going to the TuneIn Radio app. Type in TuneIn Radio in the App Store, and go to the search button, type in WSAR, and guess what? Monday through Thursday, 9 to 11 a.m., my voice comes to you in your ears all around the world, or the AM airwaves. You can listen to us from Cape Cod all the way out into Rhode Island and anywhere in South Coast Massachusetts, 1480 AM. And you know, we've got an action-packed week coming up, right? It's the State of the Union address. And honestly, I'm actually kind of honored because the response to the State of the Union by Joe Kennedy is going to be at Diamond Regional Vocational Technical High School. My alma mater is going to be hosting the State of the Union address. How about that? But let's talk about what you think Donald Trump is going to be talking about. Let's talk about the things that you think he needs to address. So here's my questions to you. First, what should he talk about? What do you think is important that he needs to talk about or else people can suffer? Second, what do you think that he has to talk about that he's not going to talk about? And what do you think he has to say to make you feel better? And there's a slew of topics. We could talk about the opioids and say, do you think it should be a national emergency? Why did he stop short of calling it an epidemic? We could talk about taxes and his recent win with tax reform. The wall and immigration. What he's going to do with Dreamers. What is he going to do about DACA? What is he going to do about the wall? Working together. How is he going to get the huge divide between Democrats and Republicans to get closer together? Because he can do that by simply using his words and using some actions to support his words. So how can he get the Republican side of the House and the Democratic side of the House to start working together? Also, infrastructure. He's planning on rolling out, or at least people inside are talking about, he's planning on rolling out with $1 trillion infrastructure plan. $1 trillion. Think about that. How many zeros is that? So he's going to roll out with $1 trillion infrastructure improvement plan, and that's something that he's supposedly talking about in this upcoming State of the Union address, according to USA Today. So what do you think needs to happen along with that? Also, he could talk about the economy and how it's been booming over the past year. He could talk about North Korea and how he plans on making sure that they don't have nuclear access. That's something he's actively been working towards, but how he can make sure that that happens more so. And one of the other topics, trade. What are we going to do to make sure that trade is fairer? What are we going to do to create more American jobs? I think that's something he'll talk about. He may even talk about NAFTA. And a lot of you know about NAFTA because that was something that came across during the Bill Clinton administration. That's the North American Free Trade Agreement, NAFTA. And then also, what do you think the Democratic response is going to be to a State of the Union address? So we have a whole bunch of topics that we can talk about today. There's a whole bunch of topics that are out there for you. I want to hear what you think. What does Donald Trump have to talk about to get you to feel more confident in him? What does Donald Trump have to say to make you feel like he's representing you? If you love Donald Trump, tell me what he has to say to make you feel stronger in his belief to do things. So that's coming up this Tuesday. Let's start having the conversation today. And the insiders on USA Today and some of the other insiders are saying that his theme of the entire State of the Union address is going to be a safe, strong, and proud America. That's right. The State of the Union address is tomorrow, and the Democratic response to the address is right in my backyard, right in South Coast, Massachusetts, at Diamond Regional Vocational Technical High School, my alma mater. I'm so proud. We have Joe Kennedy, who's going to be representing the Democratic Party during the response, and it's going to be real interesting to be able to hear that. So You have the ability to join the conversation by calling 508-673-1480. You can watch us live on the J&J Jewelers Facebook Live cam. You can also watch us by going to WSAR.com, Spindle City Auto Glass Studio Cam. You can listen to us on the AM airwaves on 1480 AM. So, yeah, let's start diving into some of these topics. Let's start talking about what he should be saying during this State of the Union address. And the first topic that I brought up was opioids. What does he have to say to make people feel safer, to reduce the death rate, to start having people focus on the things that are really killing people, which is opioids? So, what do we have to do? So the opioid epidemic is killing people. We've talked about it in the past. It's killing people. And Donald Trump came out and called it a national emergency instead of an epidemic. Now, the question is what happens if he calls it an epidemic as opposed to a national emergency? And I'll tell you what. A whole ton of funding goes to organizations that can then use those funds to help people get clean. Because right now we're focusing on reducing deaths, but we're not focusing on helping people get clean and having people stay clean. Why? Because we want to talk about opioid deaths and how people aren't dying because drug companies make more money the longer people stay alive, right? We're not talking about the overdose rate. And why is that happening? Think about this for a second. Drug companies have you in a stranglehold. They get you addicted by giving you Oxycontin, oxycodone. They keep you alive by giving you Narcan or naloxone, whatever you want to call it. And then they get you clean by giving you Vivitrol, by giving you methadone. So think about this for a second. If you're dying, pharmaceutical companies are losing their revenue source. So they don't want you to die, but they don't care if you're addicted. They don't. They don't care if you're addicted because they're making money on you every stage of the game. So, of course, they want to keep you alive longer. And why do politicians focus on the death rate as opposed to the death rate and the overdose rate? We need to start focusing on treating people as if this is a disease. And the only way that we can do that is by making sure that people aren't treated as victims. And the pharmaceutical company is victimizing people who are addicted to these drugs. What does Donald Trump have to say to get you to believe that he's going to do something to solve the opioid epidemic? 508-673-1480. You can also comment below on the J&J Jewelers Facebook Live cam, the Facebook Live stream. Also, I know for a fact, based on the way that Donald Trump is, if he's watching right now, Donald, I know that you are going to talk about taxes. You are going to talk about this tax win. And you know what? You should. You're one of the first people who was able to create tax reform. Now, the question is, was that tax reform, is it going to help as much as you say it's going to help, or is it going to potentially hurt people long term? Because trickle-down economics didn't work, right? But this is not trickle-down economics. This is a new type of reform that's helping out the corporations, which should yield to more jobs. And if it doesn't yield to more jobs, it's going to help out shareholders, which, by the way, majority of shareholders are 401k companies. Majority of shareholders are IRAs. So that's going to help a lot of people who are in middle America. Sure, it's going to help millionaires, and it's going to help these CEOs and stuff like that, but it's also going to help the people in the middle. And then I think the last thing that we'll talk about before we go to the break is immigration. He is going to talk about immigration. There's no doubt in my mind, Donald, if you're watching this right now, you are going to talk about immigration, right? So for you listeners, what do you think he has to say to make you believe that he's going to do more to change immigration? 508-673-1480. Comment below on the Facebook Live feed. So what is he going to do to make you feel better about the immigration policy? Do you like that he's keeping people out? Do you think that he needs to go stronger that way? Do you think he needs to build a wall? Do you think a wall works? And what is he going to do to fund it? Also, what is he going to do about these dreamers? Because, 1.8 million people who are potentially going to run the risk if this gets cut to get deported? And never mind if they have children here and all this other stuff. What happens to those folks? So he's going to talk about DACA. He's going to talk about dreamers, most likely, to start spurring the conversation about immigration on both sides. And as we know, there was a government shutdown recently because of this exact conversation. And I think the right thing was done where they allowed the government shutdown they ended the government shutdown and they continued moving forward, and they're going to talk about Dreamers and DACA another day because it looks like the Republicans don't have the votes. Whether you agree with it or disagree with it, it's all about votes. But I think that these are all things that he can start talking about in a way to get people working together. So what is Donald Trump going to say to get people working together? Because that's what really matters. The only way that you see an impact from your government, if you're the average person out there in the United States, is if Congress and Senate are working together. And you know who one of the best people to get people working together is? The President of the United States. That'd be one Donald J. Trump. So if he can get people working together with this speech and he can actually follow his words, we could see a difference in government that we haven't seen in a long time. Because why are people getting elected? They're getting elected because they're staying strong in the right and the left-hand side, but they're not really focusing on working together and coming together in the middle. And those who are, a lot of times they're not focused on. A lot of times they're kind of pushed off to the sides, and it doesn't work. So, unfortunately, if your government isn't working, you deal with the rumors. You deal with the consequences. But shouldn't that be what government is doing? We had a person from California say that their elected officials at the state level, if they can't pass a budget, they don't get paid if the government has to shut down. Shouldn't that be what happens at the federal government level? You're live on the legendary 1480 WSAR. Good morning.
Yes, good morning. How you doing, Rick?
Not bad. How are you doing?
Good. Well, tonight I want to see what he touches upon regarding world international issues.
And just for clarification, it's tomorrow.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, tomorrow.
Yeah. So
and maybe he'll touch base upon the economy too.
So you're saying the world's international issues. So you're talking about North Korea and their nuclear warheads.
Yes, that's pretty important. So how we're gonna react to anything, or how there's going to be any negotiations going on or talk going on.
Yeah, I think it's important that he does that, and also trade agreements with different countries, right?
Well, I know he's settled. China is an important issue with the trade agreements.
Right.
The other thing I was going to speak about.
Sure.
Last night I was watching the news, and I'm going to name this station because they did, Channel 7.
Yep.
And Representative Kennedy is going to be a rebuttal from Diamond High School.
Right.
And all they said in this newscast was Representative Kennedy, Congressman Kennedy, will be answering the President's State of the Union speech from a high school in Fall River. They couldn't even name the school.
Well,
and that just shows you what they think of us down here.
Well, it's funny because of all the places that the Democratic Party could have chose to hold this speech. It could have been Washington, D.C. It could have been anywhere in the country. Yep. It's at Diamond Regional Vocational Technical High School, my alma mater, a school that you care about because it's in Fall River, Mass. So you're from Fall River. And
I'm from Somerset, but I grew up in Fall River.
All right, and Somerset is one of the cities or towns that are serviced by Diamond Regional Vocational Technical High School. And if you're in Swansea or Westport, you're also being serviced.
Now, my daughter went to Diamond, and my nephews.
And think about that for a second. It could have been at Washington, D.C. It could have been in California. It could have been in Texas. It could have been in Missouri.
It could have been in College Park, Maryland with Marky.
Right, and instead, guess what? It is going to be in Fall River, Massachusetts, which is where I'm from, and I'm excited about. And if you're commenting from around the country, comment below and tell me what you think about that. But how does that make you feel? How does that make you feel about Joe Kennedy?
Pretty good about it.
Right.
But I'm thinking is he going to make a run for the presidency in 2020? He's 38 years old, correct?
Yes.
Okay. But the other thing is, the Kennedys have ties to Fall River. JFK, when he was a senator, he was very friendly with the postmaster here, Mr. Edwin Barabee. I believe they were in the Navy together. So much so that I remember as a kid, because I grew up in that neighborhood on Grinnell Street, Senator Kennedy would come and visit Mr. Barabee on many occasions. And when he got out of the car, he'd throw the football around with us.
Wow.
And I remember him, he had Addison's disease, and he had that always had a tan. He looked tan, but that was part of the disease. And he was slight of build because of his other issues, but he was. The wedding cake was made on Pluid's Bakery in Fall River, and the Kennedys had a tie to Fall River, Mass. And I think that's why you always saw Ted down here too. And maybe that's why Congressman Kennedy, maybe he chose the site.
Well,
for political reasons.
Maybe he chose the site because he's trying to kind of understand or represent working class people more so.
That's absolutely right. I don't think you see Elizabeth Warren doing that.
So I want to thank you so much because I think that's a fair point. I don't think that we're seeing everybody in both parties doing that. I think they're looking to appeal to their extreme constituencies.
Yeah, to the left and to the right.
I think both ways. But
take care.
Thank you so much. Have a great
You're
day.
welcome. Bye.
And we have some Facebook comments coming in. Somebody says, "You're excited to be demeaned? Just the publicity Fall River needs. I think an extremely generous offer, way more than I think they should get. Here's a reality, take it or leave it." So somebody thinks that this is demeaning because Congressman Kennedy is choosing to do his State of the Union address in a place like Fall River, Massachusetts, which is an interesting perspective, honestly. But everybody's entitled to their perspective. And if you want to tell me what you think, 508-673-1480. Because as you know, whether I agree, disagree, or whatever, ultimately, you have the opportunity to let your opinion be heard here on 1480 WSAR. And we're not only listening to that over the AM airwaves, but people are listening WSAR.com. They're watching me here in the studio on the Spindle City Autoglass Studio Cam, on Facebook Live, on the J&J Jewelers Facebook Live cam. They're watching me here in the studio and they're commenting below. And we can also start calling in again, 508-673-1480, and have this conversation. So we talked about some of the things so far that Donald Trump should or shouldn't say during this State of the Union address. Well, tell me, what do you want to hear? What is it that you have to hear from Donald Trump to make you feel better about him, to make you feel worse about him? Well, we've already talked about a lot of these things. We've talked about the world trade, and we've talked about kind of global agreements. We've talked about opioids. We've talked about taxes. We've talked about immigration. We've talked about working together and how Congress needs to do that more so. So when you really think about what we need to do, is Donald Trump going to say those things? What do you think? Do you think that Donald Trump is going to go up there and be the president that you voted for? Do you think that Donald Trump is going to go there and he's going to flop? I want to hear your opinions. So if you're commenting on the Facebook Live feed, the only way that you can join the conversation that way is by going to the Brain Drain with Rich Cabaceras Facebook page and commenting below on the actual page and join the conversation that way. We're going to go back to the lines. You're live on the legendary 1480 WSAR. Good morning.
Good morning.
How you doing?
How are you doing, Slim?
I'm doing
Good.
great. How you doing?
Not too bad at all. Listen, first thing I want to say is I think Fall River is on the verge of really moving forward. There's been a lot of progress in the past few years. And, you know, the naysayers of Fall River, they're constantly bashing Fall River, constantly. We even have an editor in the Fall River Herald News. Seems like his weekly column, instead of praising Fall River, or at least working with Fall River on problems, he seems to like to bash them also. I think the naysayers are going to be proved wrong. Now, as far as Joe Kennedy being in Fall River, I think it's a positive for the city, and I think the city has to capitalize on it also. I think they have to see whatever funding that they can get from federal and state to pump that into the local economy. And as we know, just by Diamond alone, they're focusing on education. And any monies that can be brought into Bristol Community College, University of Mass, should be pumped in, and I would like to see the colleges expand in Fall River. And that brings me to even to the point of the mills that are going to be torn down in the South End.
Before we go there, caller, I want to comment on some of the things that you said. So first, yes. It's frankly an honor to have the Democratic.
You're right.
It's frankly an honor to have the Democratic response at my alma mater. But what do you think? So who do you think is going to? What do you think Donald Trump is going to say that's going to make you feel better or worse? What do you think that the Democratic response is going to be?
I'm not totally against Donald Trump. He is when it comes to the business world, he truly says it all the time, and he really is. He's all about the deal.
Okay.
Is he on an ego trip? He most certainly is. Does he think that his ideas are bigger, better, and brighter than anybody else's? He most certainly does. Is he respectful to people all the time? Heck no. But at the same time, what he's doing for the economy, all boats are rising in the lake of despair. Let's put it that way. Everybody's starting to do well.
But we've
Now,
seen.
Hold on.
Yep.
I realize there are a lot of people that have not been a part of this. But ask yourself this: 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago, how many people had a job, and what they did is every week when they got their paycheck, they spent it on good times. They had good times. And then all of a sudden they find themselves in their 50s and their 60s, and if you got $25 in a bank, and they're going to cry to the rest of the world how they're poor, how they have nothing.
So
there was a lot of them, I think, they didn't save for their future. They didn't plan for their future. And now they want the whole world to take care of them. Go ahead.
All right, yeah. In the interest of dialogue, let's kind of have this as a little bit of a back and forth. But here's the thing, and a lot of people will say that we've seen economies rise like this in the past, and unfortunately there's been large corrections and a lot of people have been hurt. How many of those people who you're saying have missed out are now investing in the market who may be investing at a top and they could get hurt because of this? So
That's true, but maybe they should just buy in increments, small amounts, and dollar average. Don't just go everything into all at one time. Because that probably will wreck.
Dropping some knowledge about dollar cost averaging here on Brain Drain. I appreciate it. So, now, what do you think the Democratic response is going to be? What do you think the Democrats, because ultimately they're doing this to kind of start to prepare for a presidential race, and I'd argue because Joe Kennedy is giving the Democratic response, he may be looked as one of those candidates who could run for president. Now, that being said, what do you think the Democrats have to say to start to win you to their side for a future president? I know we are 3 years out, but it's an important question.
Well, I think they're going to play totally on the immigration bill as far as immigrants being rounded up and being sent back. I think they're going to play that to the hilt. I'm hoping that Donald Trump does come to an agreement with the Democrats, and I think it's called DACA. A lot of the individuals that came here as children, I believe that they should be allowed to stay. One thing I am against, and I'm not sure about the Democratic point of it, I am not for these sanctuary cities. We have a government, we have a federal government who has laws. And as states and individuals, we can't pick the laws that we want to follow and pick the laws that we don't want to follow. I mean, if you remember correctly, and I don't want to go back into history, we had the Civil War because 11 states decided they were going to do what they wanted to do.
Well, and before we go into the Civil War,
we know what that led to.
Right. Before we go into the Civil War, because you're right. In the interest of time, I just want to kind of say now they are probably going to address immigration, DACA, and the Dreamers. I'm thinking they're going to have to talk about tax reform. They're going to have to talk about the infrastructure plan because that's probably going to be a platform that Donald Trump is going to talk about. So, what are they going to have to say? And ultimately, I think that Donald Trump's
one thing I think it's always going to be about the drug crisis. It's going to be about poor individuals and needing help. But at the same time, back in the 1930s, you had the civil, I think it was called the Civilian Conservation Corps. You had the WPA Acts, and what happened is a lot of people that didn't have jobs were put to work. They learned trades. They worked on federal projects, whether it was dams, roads, forestry, infrastructure in the cities. And, they got paid, but they got paid to work. They didn't get paid to sit at home and watch television and hang out on a street corner. And I think that's what you need to go back to. Everybody has to contribute to society to the best of their abilities. Period. No free lunches. If you're handicapped, that's one thing. If you've got mental disabilities that can be proven and it's not an act, no problem. But if you're an able-bodied person that just wants to live on the system, you want to hang out and take no responsibilities and get a check in the mail every month, guess what? I think that time has to come to an end.
Thank you so much for your points. Have a great day. I appreciate the conversation. Because somebody was just talking about how they feel that people should be paid for the work that they do and not for sitting on their butts. And I think I'm quoting him, if not verbatim, pretty close. Is Donald Trump going to talk about that in the State of the Union address? Is he going to talk about the welfare system? Is he going to talk about what we can do to reform it? Is he going to talk about, as they also talked about, Social Security, people with mental illnesses, if they really have them? How are they going to reform disability insurance through the Social Security system so people are less likely to get it if they're faking or manipulating the system? And I'm sure if you talk to an attorney who focuses on disability, they will tell you that it is very difficult to get a disability with the Social Security system. It takes years. But a lot of people are getting it. So the question is he going to address welfare? Is he going to address some of the things that you see and face every single day? Because one thing's for sure, he's going to talk about his recent tax budget. He's going to talk about the win that they had with that. He's going to talk about immigration. There's no doubt about it. He's going to talk about DACA and the Dreamers. He's going to talk about how he wants to build a wall. And as you know, you've seen the debates. You've seen the rallies. Donald Trump is kind of off the hip, and he may not stick on script. So who knows what could happen at this State of the Union address? I think it's going to be pretty interesting. And if you're not watching tomorrow on Tuesday, and if you're not watching this State of the Union address, you might want to turn the TV because who knows what's going to be said. I think over an extended period of time, he's going to have to go off the cuff at least a little bit. And it's going to be interesting to see what he says. So tell me what you think he has to say to start convincing you that the government is going to change. Tell me what he's going to have to say to convince you to vote for him 3 years from now. And also, we have the Democratic response coming right in my backyard, Fall River, Massachusetts, at Diamond Regional Vocational Technical High School, my alma mater. I'm so pumped about that because it could have been anywhere in the country where Joe Kennedy could have spoken. Instead, he chose Diamond Regional Vocational Technical High School. Think about that for a second. That's huge. And I'm excited to hear what he has to say. I'm excited to hear the response because he is going to talk about tax reform. And I get it. The Republicans are saying this tax reform is going to help everybody. The Republicans are saying that. The Democrats are saying the exact opposite. It's going to hurt everybody except for the ultra-wealthy. Immigration. Donald Trump is probably going to say he wants to build a wall, and the Democratic response is going to be a wall is not going to work. It just divides people as opposed to bring them together. And I'd love for Joe Kennedy to add the additional piece of the last time I can remember a wall like this, we had to tear it down, and I can remember the saying, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down that wall. And also, I just got something in from my general manager saying that we're going to be covering the State of the Union address at 9 p.m. live, and we're also going to be covering the rebuttal, the Democratic response to the State of the Union address here on 1480 AM, your legendary 1480 WSAR. Somebody on Facebook Live says, it takes years for people that are really sick, but if you are an alcoholic or a drug addict, you automatically receive it. It's total BS. And they're talking about the way that the Social Security system works and Social Security disability. So if you're really, really sick, it takes you years and you have to hire an attorney and you have to try to convince them that you're really sick. And this person is arguing that if you're a drug addict or you're an alcoholic, the process is a lot faster. You automatically get it. Do you think that that's right? Do you think that he is going to talk about the way that the Social Security system works? Because one thing is for sure, there's definitely one thing for sure. The government has used the Social Security system as its piggy bank. Whenever something needed to be funded, they'd pull it from the Social Security system, and now they're talking about it being underfunded, which is very interesting. And a lot of the states do the same thing, right? With the state pension system, a lot of the states, when the pension system makes more money than expected, they'll pull some of that money out to use towards their general fund operating budget, which is scary because those funds are supposed to go towards the retirees. So ask yourself this question. What do you think he has to say to make a difference in your world? Do you think that he should really focus on getting people to work together? Because there's going to be one thing that's certain. I can pretty much guarantee this. He's going to say things, and Democrats are going to sit down, and Republicans are going to stand up and clap like crazy. And Democrats are going to continue to sit down and have frowns, and Republicans will continue to stand up. Now imagine if he could do one thing, just one thing, that got Democrats to stand up, clap, and maybe even Republicans sit down. That would be reaching across the aisle. And isn't that exactly what the President of the United States is supposed to do? I get it, he's got control of the House and the Senate, but that's probably not going to happen forever. And once he loses control of House and the Senate, how is he going to get the things done that he wants to get done? The only way that he can do that is start reaching across the aisle now. So, is he going to do that in this State of the Union address? Is he going to start conceding on immigration? Is he going to concede on the wall? That question is posed to you. 508-673-1480. You can comment on the Facebook Live cam. Comment below on the Brain Drain with Rich Cabaceres page. And what do you think is going to have to happen? What do you think Joe Kennedy is going to say? Again, I think he's going to start focusing on things like spending on infrastructure, right? He's going to comment in response to Donald Trump's $1 trillion spending on infrastructure. And he's probably going to say that's going to help increase the deficit as opposed to it's instead of reducing it. And should we be focusing on reducing the national deficit? He's going to talk about trade and how free trade seems to be going away because Donald Trump is focusing on NAFTA and potentially doing away with that. He's going to say that that potentially could be a bad thing because, as a lot of you know, NAFTA was something, and that's the North American Free Trade Agreement. That was something that was proposed under Bill Clinton, and that's something that allowed freer trade just in North America. So is reducing the amount of trade or putting tariffs on people from Canada and Mexico really going to help? Do you think a wall is really going to change your life? Think about all these things for a second, because this could be the speech that either makes or breaks Donald Trump. And if you love Donald Trump, you want Donald Trump to knock this out of the park. Do you think that the hardline politics of just staying on the right is going to work for him? If you love Donald Trump, if you absolutely love him, do you want him to stick on the extreme right, or do you want him to start conceding a little bit so he can kind of stay as the president of the United States for another 4 years? Somebody on Facebook says Democrats need to do their job and work with the president. He is making a difference in our economy, and people need to stop complaining and let him do his job. Thank you for that comment. And do you think that the reason why things aren't getting done is because the Democrats don't want to do their job, as this person who commented said? Do you think that they don't want to do their job? Or do you think that Democrats are really just sticking up for what they believe in? Because the question could go either way. Do you think Donald Trump is doing his job and people are just obstructing? Or do you think that they're doing their job and it's his job to kind of reach and get both parties to continue to work together? Because right now the divide I don't think I ever remember a divide this great. There was a great divide under Barack Obama, but it seems like the division has gotten even greater. And that's shameful, right? What is your government doing for you if they're not working together? What is your government doing for you if they can't come together and compromise? And there's one thing I know about the person who's giving the Democratic response. He's reached across the aisle a bunch. He's reached across the aisle. Actually, I have a friend who needed some help with, he was injured in war. He had a freak, it's not an accident, he was engaged by enemy fire and almost lost his leg. Purple Heart recipient, and was dealing with issues trying to get back to work and had an insurance issue. And there was a bill that was currently present, proposed by a Republican person, and he was reaching out to his congressman, who was Congressman Joe Kennedy. And Joe Kennedy reached back out to him. It took a little bit, but he reached back out to him and he said, hey, not only am I going to support it, I'm going to co-sponsor it. So it seems to me that Joe Kennedy is willing to reach across the aisle. And is that going to be the Democratic response to Donald Trump? Somebody who can reach across the aisle and go both ways. Do you think work with the Democrats and work with the Republicans? Do you think that that's what we need as a president of the United States? Will you vote for somebody like that? Or do you want somebody who's going to stick extreme left or extreme right? So we were talking about previously what Donald Trump has to say during the State of the Union address to make a difference in your life. And also, what do you think the Democratic response to that is going to be? Let's add to that a little bit. So now the Democrats are going to be looking to find somebody to run for president on their behalf. The Republicans may be even doing the same thing. So who do you want to represent you in the next presidential election in 2020? Who is going to make a difference? Is it people like Oprah Winfrey? Is it a person like Oprah Winfrey? Is it a person like Joe Kennedy? Is it a person like Hillary Clinton? Is it a person like, let's see, Bernie Sanders? Is it Donald Trump? Tell me what you like about Donald Trump. Tell me what you dislike about Donald Trump. Lines are open, 508-673-1480. We are going directly to the calls. Call you live on the legendary 1480 WSAR. Good morning.
Yes, I am alive. I hope. Taking on the issue. Well, we know this much. The speech Tuesday night will be largely scripted.
Okay.
Most of it will be devoted to bragging about himself.
Okay.
Nothing I have seen with Donald Trump has changed my view of him.
Okay, so you think that it's going to be largely scripted, he's going to brag about himself, and nothing he's done so far has changed your opinion of him?
Well, let's go down a quick list. Tax breaks. That's a win. Of course, it was claimed to be a middle-class tax breaks, and I'm sure the little guy will get some crumbs, but when it's a 78+% corporate tax reduction, I don't know how the little guy can get very much. Number two, these claims about wages going up because of course, Donald Trump. Bloomberg Business did a thing the last couple of days that says, don't count on wages going up.
So, in the interest, because I know there's a long list, so in the interest of time, give us the rest of the things that you think are that he's going to talk about and he's going to count as a win that isn't a win.
Oh, he's going to claim that, trade deals. Okay, he got rid of TPP. That would have hurt China. You see him bringing his jobs back from China. Foxconn, someone talked about welfare before. Foxconn, the company that's supposedly coming to Wisconsin with 13,000 jobs. We don't know if that's happening. But I know this much. If it happens, the good taxpayers of Wisconsin are going to be giving $153,800, and anybody can do the math, of welfare per job.
All right, so now it seems that you're dissatisfied, and I know I'm putting words in your mouth.
I don't like liars.
All right,
Sorry.
so you don't like Donald Trump. Who do you want?
Liars.
Who do you want to represent you in 2020 against Donald Trump?
Oh, you know what? Can I be honest?
Yeah.
I have no clue. I do like a John Kasich, but I don't think he's going to go anywhere.
John Kasich I actually picked a Republican ballot and voted for John Kasich in 2016.
Yeah, because he was a reasonable. I want to hear. I don't care whether it's Democrat or Republican. A reasonable voice. One last idea.
Sure.
Because I easily. Like I said, I don't like liars. I don't like people who hurt little people. I don't know what's so Christian about that. I listen to these pussheads like Jerry Falwell Jr. and all the rest of them defending Donald Trump in his extramarital affair. But in terms of North Korea, I'd like to know what he's accomplished. Except Rocket Man and Fire and Fury, He's not going to get North Korea to give up its nuclear weapons.
Well, to be
I
fair,
wouldn't either.
North Korea and South Korea are talking for the first time in decades.
Oh, I think, first off, that was because the incoming president of South Korea ran on that idea, and I think they come to realize that they, particularly South Korea, who does not have an ambassador yet. I think that would be kind of important. But we do have a new, it was on your news, a new appointee to HHS, Health and Human Services, an insider drug company. I love it. So, maybe the leader of, likely the South Korean leader, is realizing you can't count on the United States, weakening American power around the world. And that's the name of that tune.
Thank you for your call.
Be good.
Have a great day. And I think the question is important because right now, Democrats and Republicans are looking for who is going to run for president in 2020. Right now, they're recruiting people, and it seems like one of those folks is Joe Kennedy, right? Another one of those folks may be Oprah Winfrey. Oprah Winfrey's had a lot of buzz going around her about her running for president of the United States. Here's an interesting fact. Hillary Clinton showed up at the award show last night. Hillary Clinton. So, really, there are multiple people who could potentially run for president in 2020. Also, Bernie Sanders is still out there. So the question becomes, who do you think best represents you? Who do you like? Who do you not like? Obviously, people didn't like Hillary Clinton. But if you liked Hillary Clinton, call in, tell me why. Bernie Sanders didn't win, and you could say that's because of the process of the national conventions, and we've talked about how the national conventions don't allow for equal votes of people. But who do you think should be our next president? You're live on the legendary 1480 WSAR. Good morning.
Hi, good morning. Let me turn down my radio. I would vote for Trump again. Obviously, he knows how to get business going. He's taken, for every new regulation, he's cut 22, which is higher than he thought it would be. And actually, all the market adjustment that's going on has occurred primarily because of that. They haven't even got to the tax part. Now, a lot of people think that you're going to get this whopping tax, but if you work between, let's say, the family income comes between $65,000 and $75,000, you're going to get a $2,000 tax break. That's not chump change, because that makes a difference on how you live. You also have the 401ks. You also have the effect of the pension funds. If you belong to a union, your pension fund is invested. And now what that's done is that's made that grow just like the 401ks and the personal IRAs. So it's a win.
So you like Donald Trump?
I'm looking at my what is it? My statement on my IRA. I love it. I mean, let's face it. That's where the money come in.
Now, do you feel that this is all propped up on just speculation, or do you think that there's actual tangibles?
I mentioned that as the first item.
Right.
What we've seen so far is just due to the regulation. They didn't realize how much regulation was in there.
Well, to be fair, the market started booming the second he got elected to office.
No, if you remember, they had actually shot it down to him originally. They had a 600 blip downward because they didn't know what he was going to do. When he said regulation, the magic came in because everybody's regulation. When government comes in, government is an overhead.
So it's actually interesting because one of the things that happened is I can remember the day after the election, the market went up. It went down for a little while.
Of the election because they didn't know who was going to actually walk through.
So
it actually dipped because everybody said, "Oh, you can't have a guy who doesn't understand government." No, he understands business. I'll give him the attaboy all the way in because what is it? He's grown. What is it? 5,000 or 6,000 points since he's been in here. What is it? And the index for the Dow. God, you know what's happening? People are going to start investing in their businesses again.
Thank you so much for your points. I appreciate you calling in. Have a great day.
You too.
And we have somebody there saying that they want Donald Trump in 2020. So thank you so much for your opinion. We're going to go one more. Good morning. You're live on 1480 WSAR. How you doing today?
Good morning, sir. How are you?
I'm doing great.
I'm doing spectacular myself.
That's great.
Donald Trump all the way again.
All right, wow.
No doubt about it.
2 people for Donald Trump. And there hasn't been a Democratic nominee. Actually, we had another person say John Kasich from the Republican Party. So it seems that Republicans are calling in right now and saying exactly who they want. Now, tell me why you like Donald Trump.
Because, like this morning, I heard Bernie Sanders running his pie hole again about we got to do stuff for working family. You career politicians have been in there for who knows how long, and you've made yourself wealthy and rich. All on promises of helping poor people. You helped make poor. And this guy, if anything, what Trump has done is he's proven just how worthless and useless these career politicians are. All they do is run their mouths and what they're going to do, and they do nothing. In 1 year, the man's done more than Obama did in 8 years. Undeniable. Stock market up. The lowest black unemployment rates since the numbers have been recorded. What did Obama do for black people? Nothing. More promises, more hatred. It's the white man holding you down, blah, 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 blah. Same baloney over. Just look at any place Democrats have been in control, even Fall River, for any long period of time. Look at Chicago. Look at Detroit. Look at that. You can't see that and come to the realization that Democratic policies don't work. You know what I mean? And here we have a Republican come in, a businessman who they were putting down with supposedly no prior governmental experience, and look what he's done in the short time he's been. And against everybody around him, nobody's helping him. Some are jumping on the bandwagon now, but he ran against opposition from his own party, from the Democrats, and he still got stuff done. What does that tell you right there?
You know, I think you make some fair points, and, you know, if people agree or disagree, I want you to call in 508-673-1480. Thank you so much for your points.
Love the Donald.
Have a great day. So we've already started talking about the upcoming State of the Union address. We talked about what you think Donald Trump has to say to make you feel better about him, or do you think that he's already doing a great job? What does the Democratic response have to be? Also, who do you want to see as your next president? Who do you want to see run for president in 2020? That's an important question because right now, both parties are looking for people to represent the party. They are actively recruiting, and the campaign's probably going to start a year and a half from now. So right now, it seems that Democratic candidate, potentially for president, Joe Kennedy, is on the docket. Think about that. Joe Kennedy, a guy in his late 30s, could potentially be running for president. How do you feel about that? Do you think that's good, that's bad? Who else is on the Democratic docket potentially? You have Oprah Winfrey. You have Bernie Sanders. You have a potential run from Hillary Clinton. Or there could be somebody else who pops up out of nowhere. And then the Republican Party might not go with Donald Trump the second time. The Republican Party could choose somebody else. So tell me what you think. Who do you think will best represent you for another 4 years? I know we're only a year in, but they are recruiting right now to see who is going to run for president. So, yeah. Question is posed to you, 508-673-1480. Who do you think is your next president? Somebody said that one of the topics that we should be talking about is world issues and the situation between North Korea and the situation with the United States and how South Korea and North Korea are playing with each other. What do you think? You're live on the legendary 1480 WSAR. Good morning.
Hey, good to beat Biden and Kennedy.
There you go, Joe Biden. That's a name that I didn't mention. So you think it should be Joe Biden as president and Joe Kennedy as vice president? So Joe and Joe.
Yep.
Okay. And, you know, I think that is a good proposal. I think that would adequately represent the Democratic Party. Whether you agree or disagree, you have the opportunity to join in the conversation. Now, what do you think they would do differently?
That's a winning team. What do I think they do differently?
Yep.
Everything.
All right, so
the working man would get a fair shot.
So you think that the working man right now is not getting a fair shot?
The environment would get a fair shot.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's fair. You think the environment. Now, what about the economy? There are people who are on the Republican side.
Listen. The economy is all cyclical. It takes a long time for changes in the economy. Any everything he's reaping was already set up under Obama.
Okay. And, I think that's a fair point. I also think that one of the things that happens when we have a long growth like we have right now is a correction is imminent. So when is that going to happen?
Correction, I think you'd see a big change in the market if something happened with this Russian thing and he gets indicted, or in the Korean problem, if something goes amok there.
Yeah, it's funny because South Korea and North Korea are talking for the first time, and it almost seems like it's in spite of Donald Trump.
South Korea and North Korea, well, South Korea is talking because they don't trust Trump. They think he's a nut. They're making their own deal. They're telling North Korea, don't start shooting missiles over here because of him. You talk to us about us.
Thank you so much for your points. So there we go. We have somebody who's saying that Joe Biden and Joe Kennedy should be the next president and the vice president of the United States. And as you know, Joe Kennedy is going to give the Democratic response tomorrow after the State of the Union address. Somebody on Facebook Live says the president has a significant and pivotal 2 weeks, starting with the State of the Union address tomorrow. Between the State of the Union address and the looming shutdown in 2 weeks, there may be some dealing with infrastructure, DACA, there's that forever accent. The infrastructure, DACA, and fiscal budget. A lot of the president and Congress to chew on. We're talking about who you want to be your next president. Do you want Donald Trump to run again in 2020 and win again? Do you want Oprah Winfrey to win? Do you want Joe Kennedy? Do you want John Kasich? Joe Biden? Do you want Hillary Clinton to run again? Do you want somebody else who I haven't mentioned? Call in 508-673-1480 and let me know who you think needs to be the next president of the United States. We're also talking about the State of the Union address. What do you think Donald Trump needs to say to make a difference? What do you think Donald Trump needs to say to get Congress and Senate working together again? Because the Congress and the Senate are more apart, more divided than we've seen in a long time, if ever, right? Last time we saw something like this, it was actually his predecessor, Barack Obama. There seem to be these extremes that continue to grow. And over time, it seems that people have lived more to the extremes. And what is the cause of that? My argue is it's mainstream media. But let me know what you think. What do you think he has to say during the State of the Union address? Who do you think is your next president of 2020? You're live on the legendary 1480 WSAR. Good morning.
Good morning, Rich. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Good, thank you, Rich. Don't leave Cory Booker out of the short list for Democratic running for president.
Okay.
He's very popular. Good friends with Oprah Winfrey, by the way, and Barack Obama.
So do you think it could be he could be a vice presidential candidate with Oprah Winfrey, or do you think that he's a presidential candidate?
I think it could be the other way around. Cory Booker, I think the family of four living on Columbia Street making $35,000, $40,000 a year can identify with Cory Booker.
Okay.
He was the mayor of Newark, New Jersey for a couple terms. This is a guy that's hands-on. He's not divisive. I just think he would bring a lot of unity to the country. And also, I'm a little bit older than you, so I was brought up in the 60s, so I remember John F. Kennedy, Bobby Kennedy, and Martin Luther King. And he's a combination of all three of them wrapped up in one.
Wow, talking about an endorsement,
that's pretty strong.
Yeah.
But I think you got to keep Cory Booker on the short list of Democratic nominees come 2020. So
now, to kind of continue the conversation, what do you think Donald Trump has to say tomorrow to earn your respect or potentially your vote in 2020?
Well, first of all, he can't talk about himself. A lot of the initiatives that have gone on started during Barack Obama's 8 years, too, when we talk about low unemployment for blacks. So that he really can't take credit for that. He has to convince the public that this tax package is, to me, it's just good for big business, really. So he's going to have he's going to speak more about that. He's going to talk about the wall. I don't think we want the wall. That's everything against we stand for liberty. So he's going to talk a little bit about DACA too. But again, kudos to Diamond Vocational and Joe Kennedy for and Fall River. And for the Greater Fall River area, kudos to the whole Greater Fall River.
Think about that for a second. So I'm an alum from Diamond, and I couldn't be prouder that out of all the places he could have picked in the country, he picks my alma mater. And I don't know if you went there, but that's it's not for me, but good for them.
I've done a few advisory boards back in the 90s there, and I'm going to tell you, Diamond Vocational is one of the best hidden gems ever, and it really prepares kids, not just for college, but Diamond Voc prepares the students for careers.
Well, how about this? How about vocational schools in general should not be hidden gems? It should be something that's supported all across the board.
Exactly.
Because it gives people opportunity.
Yeah, great school, Diamond Vocational. Thanks, Rick, and thank you very much.
Have a great day.
Take care.
There we go. So we have a bunch of people saying a bunch of different people. A bunch of callers, let's say, saying a bunch of different people who could potentially run for president of the United States. So we had two people ranting and raving about Donald Trump, and they think he deserves it, which is good. Because I'm glad that he has a support base. But also, we have people who are on the opposite side. It seems that Republicans are saying maybe we want to run for somebody else, and there are Democrats saying that we want somebody else running for them too, for president too. But the question is who is going to be that next presidential candidate? And I gotta say, it seems that there are more people picking Donald Trump than other potential candidates, and that's to be expected. We're another 3 years out before we elect a new president, or actually, wow, I'm looking at my time. It's we're 2 years out from electing another president. So, yeah, the big question is, who do you think best represents you? And we're hearing names like Booker, we're hearing names like Biden, Kennedy, we're hearing names like Winfrey. Can you imagine? And it's funny that Oprah Winfrey comes up, because I've been saying for a long time, the only way that the Democratic Party, in my opinion, is going to beat Donald Trump is if they have a celebrity run for office. Because Donald Trump, in my opinion, got elected because of his celebrity status. Nothing more than that. Because if you look at the amount of young people who voted, they don't know what's happening in local elected office, or they don't know what's happening at the national level. They know the names that they recognize. And in my opinion, people voted for Donald Trump for nothing more than he was Donald Trump, and they liked The Apprentice. They liked Celebrity Apprentice. They liked his attitude. They liked the drama of the presidential race. And that's why Donald Trump got elected, in my opinion. Now, if somebody were on the opposite side who had that same or more star power, ask yourself the question. If somebody has more star power than Donald Trump, if you have an Oprah Winfrey, or I was saying at the time, George Clooney run for office for the Democratic Party, who wins that race? So there's another wrinkle to the conversation. Who you think needs to be the next president of the United States? Somebody on Facebook says, how about Charlie Baker? What other Republican negotiates and deals more with Democrats than him? A candidate for compromise. And you know what? I can really, really, really appreciate that sentiment, because there's one thing that needs to happen more so than ever before. The Republican and the Democratic Party needs to come together. And I agree. Charlie Baker does a very good job in that. People are saying right now that he's the most popular governor in the United States, Republican governor from Massachusetts. So, do you think that he's the potential next candidate for the Republican Party? Do you think that a Democrat does a better job? Joe Kennedy does a good job reaching across the aisle. Joe Biden did a good job reaching across the aisle. So there are some people who have made a living on reaching across the aisle. What say you? How you doing? Good morning.
Good morning.
So,
I was just thinking, you said about Trump and celebrity. You know, most of the people I talk to, they're just tired of the good ones. They're tired of political people. You know, most of us only know our local delegation, let's say. We don't know who's who in Kentucky, down south, out west, Midwest. And we're just tired. Everybody's tired of nothing getting done.
So to that point,
So,
and if you let me, because ultimately we're getting close to the end of the show, and I want to allow you the opportunity to speak and other people to speak, so I'm going to speed it up just slightly. So what do you think? Why do you think Donald Trump? Because it could have been somebody off the streets who had some great ideas who could have ran for president. Or do you think it takes a billionaire or a millionaire?
Well, he had name recognition and he was known to get things done.
Okay.
I mean, his reputation was, I get things done. And maybe you and I have a different agreement or the same agreement on how maybe we don't like the way he got things done, but he got things done.
Okay.
And I think you have to get rid of the political, what does he call it, swamp?
Oh, and so he wanted to drain the swamp, and I think that's fair. And I'm going to hold you there, but you make some very good points. And unfortunately, we're getting close to the end of the show, so I want to allow other people to speak. And he did what he, in his opinion, drain the swamp, and he did run on an election of getting things done. What say you? Good morning.
Yes. Good morning.
How you doing?
Pretty good, thank you.
So, what say you? Do you think that Donald Trump has gotten things done? Do you think he's not getting things done? Who do you think should run for president in 2020?
Donald Trump has got hundreds of things done.
Okay.
I'm a Donald Trump man all the way.
Okay.
He's turned the economy around. People are going back to work. And we've saved billions of dollars on foreign giveaway money.
You know,
and just that alone has helped to revitalize the economy.
Well,
because the business sees that we're not just tossing money to the winds.
And it's actually interesting because we've had more people call in and say that they want Donald Trump to win again than any other person or any other candidate combined, which says to me that Donald Trump, even on a station where people will argue is left-leaning, and I don't think we experience that here in this show, but even on that station, people are saying that Donald Trump should be the next president of the United States in 2020.
Yeah, that's right. And you're very fair, Rich. You don't use your cutoff button just because somebody disagrees with you.
Well, you know, I kind of feel bad sometimes when we get in the last segment like we are right now because I have to kind of rush people through to allow everybody else the opportunity to speak. But we still have 6 minutes left, and I want to give you the opportunity to make a final point, so go for it, caller.
Well, the thing is, will the Democrats get up and clap like you were saying before? Are they just going to sit there and look glum as he makes his points? His points has got to be how much of an improvement there has been in the economy of the United States, how the working man is benefiting. The tax cuts alone, so many people say it's just crumbs. I'm going to make $300 a month extra that I don't have to spend in taxes.
Congratulations to you, caller. Congratulations to the people who passed this tax reform, and thank you for your points. Have
You're
a great
welcome.
day.
Thank you.
You're live on the legendary 1480 WSAR. Good morning.
Good morning.
How you doing?
My opinion, this is my first time calling your show.
Well, thank you for calling.
Yeah, you're welcome. My opinion is I don't like Donald Trump. I hope somebody takes him out of office. That's all I can tell you. He's good for the rich. For the poor people. Okay? That's all. Thank you so much. Have a good day.
Have a great day. So it sounds to me like that caller feels that the tax reform is not going to benefit her. And the question is what do you classify as poor? And the one thing I can tell you is a lot of people don't see themselves as poor. They see themselves as middle class, even though they're living in poverty, even though they're working poor. So how can we make sure that more people in the middle class are benefiting? How do we make sure that Donald Trump is focusing on the middle class or even the working poor where majority of the people are, as opposed to the extreme rich and the extreme poor? Because it seems to me over time the Democrats are supporting the extreme poor and the Republicans are supporting the extreme rich, and the middle class just kind of gets whatever's left over, and the working poor gets whatever's left over. So what does Donald Trump have to do to make you feel like he's supporting you? If you feel that he's not supporting you, what does he have to do to continue doing a great job if you feel that he is supporting you? One thing that I would have liked to ask that caller is, who do you think should run for president in 2020? Do you think it should be Joe Biden? Do you think it should be Joe Kennedy? Do you think it should be Oprah Winfrey? Do you think it should be George Clooney? Do you think it should be some other celebrity? Do you think it should be Hillary Clinton? Do you think it should be, let's see, Bernie Sanders? There's so many names that are out there, and now we're talking about even the Republican Party. You have people like Charlie Baker and John Kasich. Ted Cruz could run again. Marco Rubio could run again. There's so many names that are out there who potentially could run for office, who have records, or some of them have records, of reaching across the aisle. I'd argue Ted Cruz is the extreme right, but a lot of them have records of reaching across the aisle. And we've got a couple of minutes left, and I kind of want to bring up a couple of points to bring it back to the State of the Union address. And I think it's important when he's talking about a safe, strong, and proud America, I think it's important that he talks about what we can do to get rid of the opioid epidemic, which should be called an epidemic. You know what? He deserves the tax praise. Take it. Talk about immigration. We need to talk about it, and we need to start talking about what we can do to make ourselves better around the world. So, really, the big question becomes, what is Donald Trump going to say to bring people together? Because if there's one thing that he can say more than anything else, if there's one thing that he can say, it's what can he do to get people working together? What can he do to get the Democrats to stand up and clap? What can he do to get them to clap even more so than the Republican Party even? What say you? Good morning.
I'm sorry, I got the wrong number.
Okay, so somebody has the wrong number, and in case you're wondering what the number was to call in live, 508-673-1480. You gotta love when stuff like that happens. That's the benefit of a live show, whether you're listening to it on Facebook Live, on WSAR.com, on WSAR 1480 AM. You get these people call in and say, hey, I got the wrong number, or they just don't want to talk about it. So, yeah, what is he going to do? Because I'll tell you one thing, and I'm pretty certain about this. Congress and Senate is not going to be Republican-controlled his entire term of the presidency. So what can he do now to start building bridges with people on the opposite side, to start promoting compromise? Because it seems like they're far apart when it comes to DACA. They're far apart when it comes to taking care of the Dreamers. They're far apart when it comes to talking about the wall. They're far apart all across the board, and we need to start coming together. You're live on the legendary 1480 WSAR. Good morning.
Good morning, Rich.
How you doing?
Good, thanks. Yeah.
All right, so what say you? Who do you want to run for president in 2020?
It has to be Donald Trump.
All right, so you like Donald and you think he's doing a great job?
Oh, yeah, he's doing a very good job, I believe, in his first year. Unbelievable.
All right, and what do you think is the best? Some of the best stuff that he's done?
Some of the best stuff he's done, well, first of all, begin with tax reform.
Okay.
He's got unemployment down to like a 17-year low.
Okay.
He's got the stock market at about a 17-year high.
And the big question is, ultimately, what do you think he can say in the State of the Union address to make you feel better and to bring people together?
He has to just keep on his topic of America first, but not alone. And if he sticks with that, I mean, how can you argue against that? Unless you just want to be an obstructionist.
I think it's fair, and, he's talking about having a safe, strong, and proud America in this upcoming speech. So, thank you so much. We're getting close to the end of the show, so I'm going to have to hold you there, caller. Have a great day.
Okay, Rich.
And, it's been a pleasure.